today. James Grimes is a director at AG&G, specializing in making and closing deals in the pub sector, and he joins us now. James, thank you so much for coming in. It seems that this is going to be still a tricky environment. Mitchells and Butlers actually today saying that for the next year they have confidence in the business, but the matter of fact is, if you're unsure about your prospects, if the economy is bad, you go out and drink less.
Well, I don't know if that's always true. I think historically there's always a resistance towards spending too much money in downturns on holidays, cars, new houses, but people would stay and go for a pint to drown their sorrows in the evenings and weekends.
But so is it important for the pubs, I guess, to be part of a chain, because then you have a lot more pricing power and so you can weather the downturn? How much more difficult is it for a small independent pub to survive in this kind of environment?
I think actually there's a real renaissance of independence coming out at the moment, both in terms of operators and of the suppliers, the brewers. There are now rumoured to be more brewers than there were in Victorian times. All these microbreweries are starting up, and I think it's actually a very good time for them. I think the independent operators are having to find niche products to sell, which the large organisations don't necessarily stock, and forming their own sort of niche as a result.
But so, James, these small brewers are basically just to keep costs down. I mean, is a pint of lager from these small brewers actually cheaper than the bigger ones, or is it just a fashion?
I think it's more of a fashion. I think they can actually be more expensive. It's they would argue a better product or a different product. I was in a pub the other day, not very far from here, where they charge up to £7 for a pint of draft lager. I wouldn't pay that, and I'm sure many wouldn't, but they have a product there that others just do not have in the UK at the moment, and they're making a profit out of it.
But they also had cheaper lagers, presumably.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
I'm just trying to understand how important is it for a lot of the pubs to offer promotions. I know you say, in a downturn, people also just want to relax, go out to a pub with their mates and forget about the economic troubles. But at the same time, they're still always conscious about how much they spend.
Yeah, no, I think everybody is. And those that might be spending £7 on a pint will spend and buy 2 or 3 beers, whereas somebody maybe on 2-for-1 offers might spend a bit equivalent amount but drink more as a result. It largely depends on what the offer is and where it is, and we're seeing a marked difference between what's happening in central London.
I was going to ask about that,
yeah,
and the rest of the country.
To the rest of the UK. Yeah.
So is there a region that is actually doing much worse than the other ones just because of unemployment rising?
Well, we specialise in London and the South East, and certainly within the M25, we're sort of calling it an international island, and they're surviving, and in many cases values of pubs are increasing in those central areas. But we are seeing that the northern and midland towns and cities are suffering through unemployment.
Are you expecting the pubs that have been more, let's say, deserted to actually have to close down in these kind of times? That's what we saw in 2008 in the height of the credit crunch.
Yeah. I think there will be a number of pubs that will be closed and converted into other uses. There are figures out to suggest it's about 52 per week at the moment, but there are 52,000 pubs in the country, so there are a lot of pubs that can close, and there's still enough business for the rest of the pubs to survive and do very well. I think some of these pubs have sort of perhaps existed for too long anyway. They're too small, uneconomic now, and there are better uses for them.
All right, James, thank you so much for your time. James Grimes, the director and pub deal maker at AG&G.